Give me those jazz hands.
Brought to you by Scoobly Doodly Doo.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jazz Hands, the podcast about listening to music. And we're here every week to listen to some cool stuff. And this week, we will listen to some more music, and it's going to be fun. What do you think, Chris?
I think this week I am going to really make good on our name of Jazz Hands because I do actually have some jazz to share today.
Very nice. So, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure. Why not? Yeah. All right. So today, kind of our theme is looking at new music that we've come across or just something that we've discovered. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's new per se, but just something that we hadn't been aware of or hadn't heard before. And I'd like to start with something from the pianist Monty Alexander. And I would call him a virtuoso pianist, just incredibly gifted, technically very good, very tasteful piano player. And I would say that probably his prime was in the 70s, really was when he was putting out most of his work. And this is a track that I really like, that I just discovered actually several weeks ago, or maybe it was a few months ago. And I put it on and it just spoke to me. This song, it's just, well, I'm interested to get your take on it, but I'm going to share it right now and we'll have a listen. All right.
Yeah, man. That's cool. I noticed some things in there that I have a question about. My question, I have a hunch that did he, to get those ultra staccato things in the melody at the very beginning, did he place his hand on the strings of the piano? Does he do that? Or am I way off?
I believe that's probably how he got the effect. Yeah. And you also heard that he did a little bit of that sort of harping motion on there as well.
That's what gave it away. Yeah. It's almost like prepared piano, but he puts his hand in there and super. I don't think you can get that kind of staccato from a pedal, right? That really super staccato.
I don't think so. Not yet. With the damper, even with the damper pedal on there, I don't think you would get it as that staccato. So I think there's a good chance that he had his hand in the piano for that part of it. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. It's very. There's not a lot of piano players that do that. You know, Cecil Taylor, but he really does it. But this guy takes this kind of funkiness and he makes it very accessible to a lot of people. I think a lot of people like this, but yet he has these, I don't know if I'd call it an advanced technique, but of putting your hand in the, and dampening the strings with your hand. I mean, that really makes those lines pop out, and those lines really speak because of it.
Yeah, definitely. I hear, even though for the time, it's kind of a modern sound with the groove and everything.
Yeah.
But I hear a ton of Oscar Peterson in there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In terms of the blues licks, he's kind of mixing it in, he was doing some modal things as well, with some fourths voicings but I hear a lot of the grooviness of Oscar Peterson and the bluesiness of Oscar Peterson in there. And if you listen to Monty Python, I got Monty Python in my head. If you listen to Monty Alexander's other recordings, it's a lot of kind of bluesy jazz type stuff. And he's a technically gifted pianist. He can just play virtually anything. It's just incredible lightning speed with those fingers, and very precise. This is another thing about him that you can hear in this track, but in any of his playing really, is just how precise his timing is. He is right on it. His lines are just right there.
Yeah, they really pop. Those lines really pop out, and his groove is tight.
Yeah, the whole band too. To be able to groove like that, just this laid back pocket, and it's not that easy to do, kind of funky style with an acoustic quartet, with the acoustic bass, but it just is right there. It's right there.
It really is. I enjoyed that. That was cool. I haven't heard piano like that in that style. I'm glad they did use a keyboard. You know what I mean? I think it's cool to play funk, but in an acoustic setting. I think that's hip. I dig that kind of that decision. That really works for me. That's really cool.
Well, and the other thing that really stood out to me is the use of dynamics, because there were parts where they were like really, really quiet, just like this brushes on the drums, damper on the piano. It's like, ba, 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 da, ba, 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 ba. And the range where they would just bring it, they went from there, to a 1 all the way up to a 10. And the way that he built it up, and he took his time with it too, when he, on his solo, when they started getting into that, the 2-chord, the 2-5 groove, just kind of built it up, and eventually when it broke, when it hit that point, it just felt really good because they took so much time. There was this patience getting there and building up to it. And I just thought very masterful the way that he constructed his solo to let it breathe a bit, and then bam, and it hit this tension, and then at the end of it, he brought it back down, and they played that little interlude from the original song. And I like that interlude too, with the piano and the bass together playing in harmony. Da, da,
It's beautiful.
bum, 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 So it's just a nice arrangement. A very simple song. Nothing really complex. And as you said, accessible. He makes it accessible. So this is something that I think if you put in front of some young people and they were at a jazz club, they would be tapping their feet and maybe they'd feel like getting up and dancing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And so would everybody else. I really dig that. That's cool. That's a good recording. Yeah.
1978. That's the date on that.
Whoa. Cool. All right. Speaking of the 70s, there's a band that sounds like they're from the 70s, or I think they do. Let me know what you think later on. But they're a band that released an album in 2011, and then November of last year, they also released their latest album, and I want to do a comparison on those. And their new album, Shore, was the new stuff that I heard that I really dug. This band is called Fleet Foxes, and to me, this band sounds that they're out of the 1970s, and they're like a combination of the Beach Boys and Neil Young. And if you combine those two, and if you can picture 1970s Laurel Canyon with the VW buses in the sunset, and the grass is brown and it's kind of yellowish brown, and that kind of vibe, 1970s. So yeah, Neil Young and the Beach Boys combine, big reverb, a lot of backing vocals, super easy changes, almost like a folk kind of thing. But this band is called Fleet Foxes, and this first one's called Montezuma, and it was released in 2011.
So now I am older than my mother and father. When they had their daughter, now what does that say about me?
What do you think?
Yeah, man. That is, you said Beach Boys meets Neil Young, but I'm hearing a lot of Simon and Garfunkel in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What do you think of that reverb?
That is definitely 1960s. And so I can
70s, 60s, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing more 60s out of this, but
Really?
like late 60s, Summer of Love kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely has that vibe. I wouldn't, if you hadn't told me it was a more recent recording, I would have thought this came from the 60s.
Yeah. The production too, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's cool that they're kind of going for that, and there's a throwback to it. And then the vocal harmonies, I can see where you would see that there's a Beach Boys influence in there. Yeah, I can definitely hear that sort of that later era Beach Boys when Brian Wilson was having was going into this super artistic phase and spending a lot of time in the studio and having albums thrown out. But it's really nice, very nice.
Yeah. So now this is the new. I'm going to play a track from the music I discovered just last year. This new album by the Fleet Foxes is called Shore, and for the equinox, I think this autumnal equinox, right on like midnight. I think it's late November, on the day, on the hour that this equinox started, they streamed the whole album live. The whole album, they did that on the equinox in late November, which is kind of cool. It's a very hippie thing to do. And this music was written mostly during the pandemic.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, they wrote this during the pandemic, and they recorded it during the pandemic, obviously. And to me, when I'm comparing the 2011 one that we just heard to this one, this new one which we're going to hear, it's more sophisticated. The new one's more sophisticated, and they're taking more chances with stuff like piano. And you'll hear this piano solo, and I want to hear what you think. Is it just a gimmick kind of thing? They're using this effect on how the piano plays, and you'll know when you hear it. So here's this their new album, Shore, and this is a song called Featherweight. Fleet Foxes.
This time I've been hanging on to an edge I caught when we both were young. That the world I want wasn't near enough, always distant, always off. In all that war I'd forgotten how as a battleground. No, I let that grasp and fall. May the last long year be forgiven. All that war left within it. I couldn't go, I'm beginning to. And we've only made it together. Feel some change in the weather. I couldn't though
What do you think? That's their new album. Actually, sorry about that. September. That was when, obviously it's September, it's not November, so I was mistaken. Sorry.
You know, the thing that strikes me about this, though, is the first song that you played, I could have believed that was from the 60s. I would have thought it was. But hearing this one, I never would have thought that. This one, I would have thought this is probably more modern, even though some of the production elements were still kind of in that vein with a little bit heavier than would be usual reverb. But what was kind of the driving theme for this song was this bass drum that was bump, 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 like you'd hear in a dance club. And
wow. Yeah.
And so I don't know if this is something that maybe they ever intended to be played in a dance club, or if it was maybe inspired by songs with that kind of rhythm. But I'm just hearing that dance club rhythm, and that's something you never would hear. You would never hear something like this in the 60s. And just the choice of the rhythmic motifs that they have, you know, right? You could hear something like that. You could hear something like that in a dance club. I mean, there it is. I mean, it doesn't have the same production elements you would hear in a dance club, but that's the thing that you would hear is that bump, bump, you know, it'd be that driving the bass drum right there, making it danceable. You could dance to this. You could, you know, if you put this in a dance club with you know, really big sound, and they got the subwoofers in there and that bass drum, that would have people. This could be played in a dance club, and it would work.
Yeah, if you put like a drum machine to it, but sped it up slightly, maybe a little bit faster. I like the lyrics. This is a very much of a 2020 kind of year. May the last long year be forgiven. I think that's goes without saying. That's the lyric in this song. May the last long year be forgiven. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Let's just forget about it, shall we?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is inspired by, 2020.
But one thing that I'm happy about is the fact that music is being made in spite of the fact that we're all on lockdown, or we've been on lockdown at various times, and it's a hard time to make music. It's a hard time to feel inspired to make music. And
yeah, what did you think about that piano kind of thing? That kind of, it's this weird kind of, all of a sudden this piano is not a real, they're playing lines, but they're really disjunct. That kind of, what do you think?
It sounded like an upright piano, and either it was an upright piano or it was some kind of a piano patch that was that was sampled maybe from an upright piano. And I couldn't tell for sure if it was a real piano or if it was a sampled piano, but it sounded almost like if a digital line or pattern were to be somehow translated into a real piano, so it was almost like a computerized sort of piano pattern, but except on a real piano.
Yeah. I think it was a real piano. The rest of the album, there are real horns. There's some great horn and some mixed meter stuff in there. Very sophisticated. Let me play for you really quick a live version of this. And as you were saying, during the pandemic, there are bands that are playing live in the studio, and this is a great example. This is the same song, and the only part is I think this needs a bass. This needs an upright bass, but let me know what you think.
All this time I've been hanging on to an edge I caught when we both were young. That the world I want wasn't near enough, always distant, always off. In all that war I'd forgotten how many men might die for what I'd renounce. I was staging life as a battleground. Now I let that grasping fall. May the last long year be forgiven. All that war left within it. I couldn't, though I'm beginning to. And we only made it together. Feel some change in the weather. I couldn't, though I'm beginning to. And though it's all so uncertain cold, all the rafters cracked, all the copper sold. There's a ration back in a manifold. If you need it or forgot, may the last long year be forgiven. All that war left within it. I couldn't, though I'm beginning to. And we only made it together. Feel some change in the weather. I couldn't, though I'm beginning to. And somehow I see it's free. And with love and hate in the balance, one last way past the malice, one warm day's all I really need.
Yeah. What do you think? It needs a bass, doesn't it? To give it that
Well,
forward motion.
I don't know about that. I'm kind of mixed. One thing I didn't really like was the shaker.
Oh, really?
I didn't like the
Did it
shaker.
just throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I just kind of felt like, I don't know. I just hate when people use shakers without I hate when they use a shaker, just a shaker to keep time. It just, to me, it felt like it took away. It could have really just been the bass drum and then the acoustic guitar with the other vocalist. That would have sounded fine by itself. I didn't really find that I missed the bass so much.
Really? I think, the shaker, I see your point on the shaker thing. It would have been hip to have the guy on brushes or something to give it more forward motion there too.
Yeah, something. And it's hard to say what exactly would work well, but I don't know. The shaker didn't do it for me. It just didn't really work.
Yeah.
But I was okay with. I thought the acoustic guitar and the vocals really nice. Just that and all the space, being able to breathe. It's very comfortable to listen to.
Yeah, it's cool that they're people making music in studios live like that, during the pandemic, which is really hip.
They didn't do the piano part though.
No, they didn't.
And there's an upright piano right there. They could have done it.
I know. Is that crazy? All right. So that's Fleet Foxes. That's their latest album, Shore. And that's one of the albums that kind of I listened to that a lot, like back in November. But that's cool.
Yeah, it's a nice band. I just really, really nice to listen to. That's a band that you can really just. I'd imagine it would take you through different moods listening to them, but it's very comfortable to listen to. It's a very comforting kind of music. I feel. I feel like I could put that on when I'm not feeling so great, and it's just a very mellow kind of music.
There's I'll send you later on. I'll send you another track through text with. It sounds like it's mixed meter, but there's horns in there, and it builds and builds, and it's like, whoa, and it's got this driving horn section thing. But I'll send it to you later, and that's also their latest album, sure. But yeah, I love that. I could listen to. There are many within that album. There are many shades as well. All the tunes are slightly different, so it's cool.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a lot of depth, and I definitely hear that. Well, I think that given that this week something very sad happened, a loss for the musical community, a big loss. We lost Chick Corea this week, and I feel like I have to talk about Chick Corea because his music has been an impact on me over the years. I've followed him all this time, and I really have admired him as a musician, as a composer, and just all of the things that he's done. You know, he's an artist that has reinvented himself again and again in a different kind of way, you know, not to make him relevant so much for the pop crowd, but he really just has kept up with the times in terms of the technology and what's happening in music, and he has always stayed relevant, I think. A lot of musicians are inspired by him. You know, even some things I do in my own playing are inspired by him. You know, there's a certain approach he has to the piano, a certain way of playing the notes, using grace notes in a certain way, and kind of that Spanish influence. And so I feel like I've got to play something from Chick Corea, and I didn't want to play something that everybody knows already. Everybody knows Spain, right? Everybody knows a lot of his Return to Forever songbook. They know a lot of the stuff that he did with the electric band, like Got a Match, you know that one? It's a fast fusion thing. And but before I play this song from him, and I'm going to play something that's a little bit more recent, I just kind of want to talk about how I first heard about Chick Corea. And it was when I was in high school, and believe it or not, it was an Arturo Sandoval album. You know, Arturo Sandoval, the trumpeter, right? Yeah. And he had this album called Flight to Freedom. And it was, I believe, his first album that he did after immigrating to the US. And looking back, listening back to that album, and I've checked it out recently. Actually, listening back to that album, I got to be honest, it's not a great album. It's not.
Oh, really? It's
not a great album. It's, for the time, it's impressive what he does. And I remember the first time hearing it in high school, being super impressed. But what is special about that album is Chick Corea plays on a couple of tracks on that album. I don't think he plays on every track. And the tracks that he plays on are good. Those are the best tracks on the album. And that should say something, I think, about Chick Corea and his ability to just make something sound better. And he did in this case. And in one of the compositions was something that he wrote. And that's not what I'm going to play today, because I've got something I like better that I want to play. But that was how I first learned about him. And, hearing him play, there was something about it that just grabbed me. That was like, this is special. I haven't heard something like this quite before. And so I started getting into more Chick Corea and checking out some of his other stuff. And I kind of really first got into, I went out and I got like a best of Chick Corea album. That's a good place to start for anybody who wants to learn something about an artist and kind of understand their music. A good place to start is a best of, a greatest hits kind of album, because that will start pointing you in directions and knowing, okay, I like this track. Maybe I want to check out more of this album. And that's what I did. And that album had, I would say most of that particular album And this was an album I bought in Korea, so I don't even know that it was an official Chick Corea greatest hits album. It might have been bootlegged for all I know. But most of the tracks were from Return to Forever or slightly before that. I think actually most of the tracks came from like the Light as a Feather album, and I just remember being blown away by the tracks on this album, on the greatest hits album, and that kind of led me to check out other things by Chick Corea. And I it's hard to pinpoint what my favorite Chick Corea album would be. It's, I like a lot of his stuff. I like Return to Forever a lot. I like The Romantic Warrior. That's an album I like quite a lot. And I like his later stuff as well. He did some stuff with the Origin Band, which had a horn section with Steve Davis, one of my favorite trombone players, and just some really nice music off of that. What I'm going to play today, though, is, I think, a treat. This is a track called, well, it's from a group he did, or he participated in, called 5-Piece Band. So it's a play on words because it's a 5-piece band, but piece is spelled P-E-A-C-E, 5-Piece Band. And the lineup in this band is Vinny Colaiuta on the drums, John Patitucci on the bass, Kenny Garrett on the alto sax,
sweet,
John McLaughlin on the guitar.
Wow.
And of course, the man,
Chick.
myth, the legend, Chick himself. And the track I'm going to play, it's called New Blues, Old Brews. But it ain't a blues. Or if it is, I couldn't tell you what kind of blues it is. But what I want to ask you after we listen to this is, I want you to tell me, what is the time signature for this song?
Oh, okay.
All right, here we go. All right.
Kenny Garrett.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. When was that recorded?
2009, I believe. It's live.
Okay. Oh, it's live.
It's live.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. I don't know what meter that's in. I don't think it changes that much. It's not that crazy, but I was just listening to it.
It doesn't change. It's 1 meter all the way through. And I couldn't have figured this out from listening to it. I had to look it up. But it's actually in 15/8.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
15/8.
And I think like the way they feel it is that rhythm, like bum, 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 bum. That's kind of how they know where everybody knows where it is. Whenever there is an odd meter tune, I always try to find like a clave, like the groupings of the eighth notes.
Yeah.
Or 16th notes. And in this case, I'm not exactly sure what the grouping is because the accents are in different places. Or maybe it's grouped differently on different parts of the form. But the way I'm counting it is 5 groupings of 3.
Is it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Is it that? Are the 16th notes that speed?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Okay. I should have said something. Darn it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, because when I count, if I counted in groupings of 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Like if I count it like that, I can hear where the downbeat is.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard. I mean, these guys are playing at such a high level that it's just amazing to me that everybody hears it. And I'm not sure they always do either. I mean, I heard a few places where,
a little bit of wiggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the beginning when he was playing the head or something.
Yeah. I heard a part where Chick Corea definitely laid a chord down in the wrong place. It was definitely because he was in a different place than everybody else was. So it's always heartening to me when I hear, okay, even these jazz cats, these really virtuoso players, it's not like they're 100% right. But that said, it's impressive to play together that well. And
the spirit's there. Like the spirit of this is there. They're playing, and especially the saxophone solo, man, that really elevated everything.
Sure did, yeah. Kenny Garrett, man, he just lights a fire under people,
It's all in his sound. It's not in a bunch of the bunch of notes or how fast he plays. It's all in the tone, the sound itself that speaks so much of it. Just his tone and the way he moves that tune forward with his voice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big sound, isn't it?
Yeah. That's why I tell my students to listen to Kenny Garrett and they like it. And if you want an alto sound, here's a great example. That's a wonderful sound. Never heard that song before. That's pretty hip.
Yeah, I like that band. And we didn't get to John McLaughlin's solo, but I didn't want to. It's like an 11-minute
song. Tune,
so
yeah. Yeah.
But our audience can go out and check out the rest of it. It's worth the listen. And there's some other very, very nice, really nice tunes in that particular set. Again, it's a live recording, so I'm always a big fan of live recordings because a lot of magic can happen when the band is playing off of the audience, and that's definitely happening in this recording as well. You can tell there's an energy there. It's a live energy.
Yeah, I didn't know it was live, but now that you mention it, that it makes sense the way they were playing it. I didn't hear the audience, so I didn't know initially it was a live recording, but yeah, it's cool. I don't listen to that stuff that much. What you and I both played is very different today. I played some like folk stuff, and you're playing all this jazz stuff.
Well, no, that's why this show is a great chance for people to be exposed to different kinds of music. It's my hope that that people might come on here and expect one thing and maybe get something different than what they're expecting, and that's exposure to new music. And so that's why I do this podcast. I like being exposed to new music too. So when you're sharing some music here that I've never heard, I always enjoy that.
And the tracks that you played today, once again, I've never heard those. And I really dug them. Especially the first one. I like the trio even better.
Yeah, and same thing with the Fleet Foxes. You had mentioned the band to me earlier. And so it's nice to dig into that and hear a little bit more. And yeah, that's nice. I hear echoes, like I said, of some Simon and Garfunkel and the Beach Boys, as you mentioned, but it's also interesting to hear where they're going in terms of their music, because they have introduced, it seems, a few more modern elements, and
especially in the later stuff. I wish we could play the Beach Boys, but they block. But we can't. So sorry, guys, we can't. There'd be so much to talk about, but unfortunately, we can't play that, and I don't think we can. There's some bands that we just can't play. So. Oh, well.
Yep. The record companies and their copyright policing makes it very hard to do any sort of educational programs or podcasts. But we will work with what we have. And actually quite a few artists, though, do seem to allow us to play their songs. So
thank goodness.
We're thankful for that.
Yeah.
Well, what have you got for us next, Dan?
Okay, so the next tune that I've discovered in the last year or so, and this is a song by the Count Basie Orchestra. And I play this for my students because this is a great example of when a band in the jazz realm, a big band, when they lay back. And this is the meaning of the phrase laying back. And at the beginning, you'll hear like a guitar that kind of sounds like a harp. Or is it a harp? Playing like this 13 chord or something? Let me know what you think. But let me know also what you think of how much this band lays back. And all my students like this tune for some reason. And so do I. Here it is. Count Basie, Little Darlin'. So that was very, very hip. You digging that, Chris?
Man, that was laid back.
Oh, yeah, like a motherfucker. That was way back there.
That was so far back, like they almost add an extra beat to every measure.
I know. That was crazy, wasn't it? Yeah. I think I sent that track to you before. And it's just a great example of
I've
style.
played that tune. I played that in a big band before. Yeah,
I think I have too.
Yeah, no, I definitely remember playing this tune in a big band, and I remember also kind of it being a lesson as well in terms of learning to try and lay it back, and us not laying back enough. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to play that slowly and keep it from wanting to edge up. And it's amazing that it doesn't speed up. It doesn't. It's I don't know. Can you let's hear the tempo at the end of this tune and compare it to the beginning, and let's see if they ended up edging it up a bit.
So I'm going to play part of the beginning and part of the very end. Here's the beginning. They kept it back.
They did not speed up a lick. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I can just see those fluttering jazz hands on that major 7 at the end. Whoa!
I don't think the Kenny Garrett band could hold a song back that far and keep it back at the end. I don't think they could. I
think they could. There's a way. And the way is 2 drinks.
2 drinks. Yeah. No, I mean, because I remember there's this album of Kenny Garrett's. It's called Standard of Language. It's a hot album. It's great. Maybe I'll play it sometime on here. It's a great album. It's really intense. It's exciting, but every track speeds up. Every track.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And more than a few clicks. Yeah.
Wow. That's okay if that kind of music, is meant to. This probably wasn't wasn't a tribute to Count Basie.
No, it's not. My point is it's hard to play that slow. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard to groove as well. And I think there's no better example of playing slowly and grooving than the Count Basie Orchestra.
Yeah. It's like they trust each other. Beat up, bum, bum, bum. Boo-da, bum. Ring, beat up, bum, bum, bum. Boo-da-dee-da, beat up. And they're just right there. Yeah. I love that track. It's so simple. And all the kids like it too. They dig it. Yeah, here's an example of a band that lays back. And here's the concept of, here's the beat, here's ahead of the beat, here's behind the beat. Did you know bands played all over the place? Let's see where this band is. This is behind the beat. Oh, yeah. They're almost dragging, but not quite. Well, maybe they are. I don't know. But I like that feeling it gives you. Beat up, bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, and there's some dynamics in there as well. That's another thing. Another band who really employed that concept of really using dynamics. And so, compression ain't gonna work with this band. You gotta let this band breathe. You gotta hear the lows and the highs, and that's what makes it exciting too. Is that the contrast.
Yeah, and they're, as you said, they're really letting things breathe. When you hear Count Basie play those octaves, doo-dee-dom, and that's it. That's all he plays. And then that guitar playing that 13 chord, harp-like, and he just lays back. Just like, that's it. That's all I'm playing.
I was wondering, was that an acoustic guitar? I think it was not an electric guitar, right?
I think it must have been a hollow body guitar with all the gain turned down or something, because it sounds like a hollow body guitar, a jazz guitar, like something like that. But I'm not quite sure. But it's interesting, like play a chord on this beat and then don't play anything else. And then you hear a little bit of ching, 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 bring, and then ching, 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 buddy don't. Very sparingly, all the parts are it's just sparingly played. There is nobody they're not showing off in this track. They're just like, this is it.
Yeah, that ain't no Chick Corea Al Demiola band.
No, this is everybody's trusting each other to lay back, and they're going on that journey, and it's all tied together, but it's so it's hip. I dig it.
Well, I do believe that brings us to the end of today's episode of Jazz Hands. We enjoyed sharing some music with you, and we did get into some more jazz today, as we promised we would. And there will be more jazz in the future, but we'll also be exploring other genres, of course, as we always do. And we're looking forward to seeing you again next week on Jazz Hands.
See you later.